Hello and welcome to Positively United. Today, Monday, the 19th of January, 2026. And today, the story that's really broken, or at least got bigger than it was before, is the stuff about Manchester United potentially acquiring a midfielder in January. Now, I say acquiring because, well, up until today, it seemed that the only game in town was a loan deal, if it was going to be anything at all. Remember, a couple of days ago, Ben Jacobs went on the Football Terrace YouTube channel and it seems to me made it explicitly clear that he expects Manchester United to get a loan deal done and that he knows who that loan deal is for. He wasn't willing to mention the name, but he said that this was a player who's got Premier League experience, currently not playing in the Premier League, playing in Europe, and that's important. Europe, he was very specific about that. Not Asia, not the Middle East, Europe. And he seemed to believe it was essentially a done deal, as far as I can tell. And of course, that started off a whole load of rumours about who that might be. And the one I thought was the most credible was Ruben Loftus-Cheek. When you look at everything like the age profile, the player profile, sorry, excuse me, but also this intriguing connection with Thomas Tuchel, because if we assume that it is going to be Tuchel who becomes the permanent manager in the summer, I still think there are an awful lot of questions about that, including why shouldn't it be Carrick? But that link was very intriguing. It seemed to really sort of flesh out the whole idea that it was going to be Ruben Loftus-Cheek. But let's come back to that. Let's come back to the Ben Jacobs story. Because what's also broken today is quite a bit of conversation about a permanent deal in January. And this seems to have been fired off by the news that broke this morning that the Manchester United board were going to be meeting Michael Carrick to discuss potential January signings. Not clear whether permanent or loan. And to be honest with you, not really clear if it's signings at all. But the fact that Carrick was meeting the board today seemed to be suggestive. Why wouldn't they discuss team requirements? Why wouldn't they discuss Michael Carrick's ideas, if he has them at the moment, about potential signings that could improve his squad and improve the chances of United qualifying for Europe? Because certainly one thing that victory, that fantastic victory over City did on Saturday, was that certainly blew out of the water any ridiculously negative talk that United can't qualify for Europe this season. Of course they can. Of course they can. But you'd have to say that if they're going to, the weakest part of that team is midfield. And in this respect, the three players who started the game, well, the two holding midfielders or the two double pivot midfielders who played from the start on Saturday, Kobe Mainoo, so great to see him in the team, and Casemiro were both brilliant, but both tired. Casemiro got substituted after 80 minutes, looked absolutely exhausted, but what a performance he'd put in. But this is always going to be the issue with Casemiro. He is unlikely to be able to regularly get through a whole 90 minutes or 95 minutes of a game. It's just not going to happen. He's going to come off either after 60 or 70 or 80 minutes. In fact, 80 minutes on Saturday, that was really pushing it. And he did look tired at the end. But Kobe Mainoo also looked tired. I thought Kobe Mainoo looked tired after about 70 minutes. He did get a second wind in the final 10 minutes of the game, I think. But I could easily have seen Kobe Mainoo brought after 70, 75 minutes because of fatigue as well. Now you'd expect that Kobe Mainoo's fitness will get better the more games he plays. He's not played this season, has he? So his fitness can't be peak. He can't have got up to full match fitness. Let's hope that starts to happen and his stamina improves as a consequence. But that's not going to change Casemiro. Casemiro is going to suffer from this problem that after about 70, 75, 80 minutes, he'll need to come off. And then we just don't have the quality to bring on. That's the problem. Those two are outstandingly our two best double pivot players. And if they can't get through a game, we don't have the quality on the bench to bring on. So that is by far the weakest part of our team. in terms of strength and depth. So you can understand why everybody is looking at a midfielder, and that's why we know we're looking at, Andy Wharton and Elliot Anderson and Carlos Baleba. I think Baleba's probably fallen off that list, if I'm being honest. I think his form this season just means he would be an incredible risk to purchase. But we know that those three players are not going to be made available in January, except perhaps for Adam Wharton, because the way that Crystal Palace are imploding at the moment has, I think, caught all of us by surprise. And let's just say, for example, eventually Palace lost their manager this month, and it happened. Could we then go in and try and prize Wharton out of Crystal Palace? They seem to be willing to sell the crown jewels to anybody at the moment, so who knows? I still think it's highly unlikely. But that meeting of Carrick today with the board seems to have really sparked a whole load of conversation about a potential move for a permanent player in January. So Steve Bates on the Give Me Sport website has mentioned Noah Siddiqui at Sunderland. 20 years old, up-and-coming talent. Yeah, possibility, maybe. Why would Sunderland sell him in January? Doesn't make any sense for Sunderland at all, unless we offered really big money. We're not going to offer really big money in January. The really big money will be offered in the summer. So I just don't see that being a prospect. I mean, he fits the bill in terms of a player. He's dynamic, he's, purposeful, he's energetic, he's quick. He'd cost a lot less than, say, a Carlos Baleba, who's what we were told in the summer 100 million. Still believe that's a ridiculous valuation. Let's say it's 80. So how much would Siddiqui be? 50, 40, 50, something like that. But we're not going to spend that money in January. I genuinely don't believe we are. And I don't even know if we ought to be honest with you. Not with things being up in the air in the way that they are at the moment. Although, because we now have a structure and the decisions aren't all down to a single manager to make, like in the days of Ten Hag, if the board decided that a shift in tactics was required and it would make sense to go after a player like Siddiqui now, why not for 50 million? But they'd have to have the money, obviously, and it would have to make sense in terms of our overall plan. I just don't see it. Psycat in the Caught Offside website is mentioning João Gomez. Now, João Gomez is being mentioned in the context of Casemiro going. And I think that is the only context that kind of like makes sense in. I don't see João Gomez coming to United whilst Casemiro is still here. So again, I don't see that being a realistic prospect for January. Dean Jones in Team Talk, of course, has mentioned Hayden Hackney again. And this one to me it would make an awful lot more sense in the sense he'd be, I'm guessing, cheaper than pretty much any name we've mentioned up until now. This might not be fair on Hayden Hackney, but you know what? If I was Michael Carrick, I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't think about it. Why? Well, because people would say, wouldn't they, from day one, that the reason Hayden Hackney was coming to United was because of Michael Carrick. That because he'd played under Carrick and Carrick likes him, Carrick had persuaded the board to bring him on board. What if it then didn't work out? Carrick would cop all the blame. If I was Carrick, I wouldn't touch it with the barge pole. And that might be really mean and nasty to Hayden Hackney, who might absolutely be a good player for Manchester United. But I think for Carrick, it's too much of a risk. And I apologise if this sounds a little bit Machiavellian, but I think Carrick's got to be really clever between now and the end of the season. If he wants to secure this job permanently, I think he can't take any silly risks like this at all. If there is an alternative that fits the bill, if I was Carrick, I'd go for the alternative. Because if he gets Hackney and Hackney doesn't work out, Carrick will get it in the neck. Michael Sacca on the Stretty News website has reported that in Spanish outlets, and I think he's probably referring to Mundo Deportivo, that United have expressed their interest in Mark Casado at £22 million. Again, well, actually, 22 million. Okay, say United don't want to spend any money in January, but 22 million is not much, is it, in the big scheme of things? So would that make sense? And he's apparently running short of playing time, so yeah, possibility. But to me, the one, if we are going to make a purchase this January rather than a loan deal, and I still think the loan deal is way out the more likely, but if it is a purchase, this one to me seems the much more likely. And that's Ruben Neves at Al Hilal. Now, his contract's ending in the summer. It's on big wages. Apparently, the fact that his contract is ending in the summer and he can just walk away means that Al Hilal are apparently willing to sell him for £20 million. 20 million for Ruben Neves. Now, if that deal could be structured in a way that Ruben Neves doesn't get anything like the wages that he's currently on, and the wages is sensible, how would that not be a good move for United? I suppose the way it would not be a good move is that he's not one of the names that's been mentioned as being one of United's long-term targets. And Ineos have made it clear that they're only interested in long-term targets, people who fit their plan. But plans have to change. Circumstances move plans. They adjust plans. One of the reasons why we got rid of our last head coach is because he couldn't change his mind. He couldn't adapt to changing circumstances. Not being able to change your plan in changing circumstances is a major red flag and is not to be applauded. So circumstances are now different. Manchester United are playing a 4-2-3-1 formation. It's really important we have a midfield that's got strength and depth. Surely getting Ruben Neves would make sense, wouldn't it? Well, we'll wait and see. £20 million seems like a bargain as far as I'm concerned. And if those wages could be drawn down, could be pushed down, it would make sense. By the way, I was reading just a few moments before I started recording this, but apparently Neves' agent is in contact with Manchester United, and there is ongoing talks about this move. I think that's perhaps a little bit more advanced and a little bit more likely than any of us possibly imagined. Let's get back to the scenario I think is much more likely, which is a loan move this January, before a permanent deal is signed for somebody in the summer. I still think Ruben Loftus-Cheek is a really, really likely name for the Ben Jacobs mystery midfielder. But four other names have sprung to life today. Weston McKennie at Juventus. He was at Leeds on loan. The Evening Standard have mentioned him. I'm not sure how excited I would be about Weston McKennie. I certainly wouldn't be as excited about him as I think I'd be about Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who I actually really would welcome at United. I think on a loan deal he'd be absolutely superb. Next name, Angel Gomez. Well, how weird that would be. For Angel Gomez to come back to United. Again, the Evening Standard are mentioning his name. I don't get it. He didn't. Did he look a great player when he was with us? Why did we get rid of him? Not a big fan of players coming back to a team, to be honest. I really hope that doesn't happen in a way. Carney Chukwuemeka currently at where is he? It's Borussia Dortmund, isn't he? Played for Chelsea and Aston Villa, so that's the Premier League experience there. Actually, to reacquaint myself with this player, I went onto YouTube just before I recorded this and had a look at him. He looks useful, really useful. He's young, up and coming, looks really energetic, looks really useful. Is not a name I would have thought of, to be honest, until he was mentioned today. But looked pretty good to me. And finally, Billy Gilmour, who's at Napoli. Of course, Chelsea and Brighton experience. I like Billy Gilmour. I really do. I think he's a superb player. Seems to be languishing at Napoli. You know, I really have a good feeling about Billy Gilmour. I think he'd do a really good job for us on a loan deal until the end of the season. I have to say, of those names, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Carney Chukwuemeka, and Billy Gilmour, I would be quite happy to see any one of those three brought in to strengthen our midfield squad until the end of the season. Probably for me, Ruben Loftus-Cheek would be top of my list because he's so proven. I thought he was excellent at Chelsea under. I thought he was excellent at Chelsea when he was there, and I think he's a player who would just absolutely relish being thrown into the United midfield, and the demands that would be put on him in that midfield. I think it might let him really shine. But anyway, that's the update for today, all about our midfield. And, from a few days ago, having no prospect whatsoever of any purchases being made in January or any loan deals being made, it suddenly feels today as if something will happen. Now, whether it does or not, who knows? But it feels a lot more positive today. And look, I'm sure none of the board watch this YouTube channel. Hardly anybody watches this YouTube channel at the moment. It's just started. But if any of you board members are watching, be sensible. Strengthen the squad where it is the weakest. And if that helps us get into Europe next season, this deal will pay for itself. 20 million on Ruben Neves, or a loan fee for any of the players I've just mentioned, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Carney Chukwuemeka and Billy Gilmour. It would be money well spent. It really would. It certainly wouldn't be money wasted. So let's keep our fingers crossed about what might happen between now and the close of a transfer window. Well, that's the update for today. If you like what I do here on this channel, please like the video, subscribe. If you've got friends who you think would welcome the kind of positivity that I try to get across on this channel, let them know about the channel as well and encourage them to subscribe. If you want to support the work that I do, the one thing I know that I need to up the game on the sort of technical presentation of this channel, I've set up a coffee account. Any donations, however small, would be gratefully received. I'll put every single penny towards upping the technical presentation of this channel. So just remember, like and subscribe. And until the next time, remain positively united.